So last night, I was at a classmate's house working on a group project we have due tomorrow. I live in an apartment in the town where our university is located, and my classmate lives at his parents' house, which is in the foothills just outside of town. In order to get to the house, you have to drive along a relatively secluded and narrow two-lane road for about 5 to 6 miles. We started working on the project at about 6 p.m., and I ended up hanging around for a while after we had finished our work. So I left his house pretty late at about 11 and started down the road back towards town. I didn't realize how tough it would be to navigate the road at night. There were no streetlights, and the road was unkempt and riddled with potholes. On top of this, I had no cell service, so I had to drive very slowly to make sure I didn't blow out one of my tires since I had used my spare a couple of weeks back. I figure I was about 3 miles from the house when I rounded a tight corner and saw a pickup truck with a camper shell parked diagonally across the road. The manner in which it was parked completely impeded my path, and I couldn't drive around it because there was a gully on both sides of the road. The only way for me to go at this point was backward, where there was a pull-off that I could use to turn my car around. At first, I couldn't see inside the cab, but when I turned on my high beams, I saw that there was a man slouched over in the driver's seat. His head resting against the steering wheel as if he had been knocked out after a bad accident. I immediately sensed something was wrong. The way his car had just, coincidentally, come to rest in a position that totally blocked the road was a big red flag for me. I had heard stories of people playing dead in the road as a way to lure unsuspecting people out of their cars so they could rob them. I decided this is unacceptable and elected to go back to my classmate's house and explain what was going on. I threw the car into reverse and kept my eyes darting back and forth between my rear view and the truck. I looked and saw that I was almost to the pull-off where I could turn around. When I looked back, my heart skipped about 5 beats. The man who had been slouched over in the driver's seat was now walking at my car at a hurried pace while a few other men jumped out of the camper shell and started moving towards me as well. I panicked and accelerated backward into the pull-off, which messed up the undercarriage of my car pretty bad. As I put it into drive, the guy was already at my passenger side door tugging on the handle. Which, thank the Lord, was locked. I only caught a brief glimpse of him, but his face appeared to be scabbed and leathery, definitely a meth head or some sort of drug abuser. I sped away and didn't slow down at all until I reached the house, constantly checking my rear view to see if they were following. Thankfully, they didn't tail me, and when I reached the house, I explained what had happened to my classmate, and we called the cops. I was grateful that my buddy's parents were kind enough to let me stay the night. They didn't find anyone on the road matching the description, but I filed an incident report, and they told me they would be on the lookout for similar vehicles and suspicious activity. But wow, I'm still so shook up over it. I keep getting the same adrenaline rush I got when I saw the guy charging me whenever I think about it.
I was watching my daughter's kids while she and her husband went out of town. They have a teenage daughter, let's say her name is Alyssa. At like 3 a.m., I was woken up by a weird rustling sound and looked out the window to see movement. I saw a boy emerge from the bushes on the side of the house, and there was a bike tossed on the lawn that definitely wasn't ours. My first thought was it was a burglar casing houses, but since he looked young and came through on a bike, I figured scaring him straight would be enough for him to decide to head home. I didn't want to ruin a teenager's life by calling the cops straight away, so I went out on the porch, flipped the lights on, and said, "Can I help you?" In my classroom voice, the guy looked surprised but not nervous. He was wearing a Letterman-style jacket, but once I got a clear view of him in the streetlights, he seemed much older than my granddaughter. Gruff and more wiry than athletic, he walked up closer to the house and said, "Yeah, I'm looking for Alyssa." I gave him a disapproving glare, hoping he'd realize he came looking for a girl late at night, and a grumpy old person answered, "It's time to split." I'm thinking what must have happened is Alyssa knew her parents were going out of town, and maybe before she knew I'd be staying over told a secret older boyfriend to come over. It was late, and I was alone with several kids. So I didn't want him coming any closer to the house. I also thought it was weird he came so late and wanted to be sure Alyssa actually wanted to talk to him. So I said, "I'm sorry." "Who?" And he said, "Alyssa. You know, Alyssa last name. This is her house." I thought, he knew her full name, they must be at least friends. I said, "You wait there." He started to walk up, and I felt a sick burning in my gut. Instinct kicked in. I yelled, "No. Stop. Freeze." Then readjusted and said, "You stay right there. This is private property, don't take a step closer. Wait. There." So I go in, and Alyssa is asleep just one room over from where the rustling first occurred, and I wake her up and say something to the effect of, "I don't know what the big idea was to have friends over this time of night, but you tell them to go home." She has no clue what I'm talking about. I say, "There's a guy outside asking for you." Confused, she gets up and goes to the window. She sees him and goes white as a sheet. "He asked for me?" "Yeah." "By name?" "Yes." "Call the police." I've never seen him in my life. I called 911 immediately, but as I was on the phone with them, Alyssa started tugging at my arm. "He's coming up." I had younger kids in the house to think about, so I kept the door latched and pulled it just open enough for the latch and yelled. I asked my husband, and none of us know an Alyssa last name. "Leave my property, or I'm calling 911. He got angry and started yelling for her to come out. Thankfully, the police came pretty quickly, and when he heard the sirens, he grabbed the bike and ran off. I watched where he was running, and he jumped into the passenger side of a car without headlights or front plates and sped off. The police followed in the same direction once I pointed them. But they didn't get him. They advised us to take all her social media details offline if she was sure she didn't know this person, and said they'd had a couple of similar reports recently and were looking into it. I got a heavy-duty lock. And she slept in my room for the remainder of my visit.
This happened 2 days ago. I live in a small city in Romania, around 30,000 inhabitants. Romania isn't exactly known for its tolerance of gay people. It's not as bad as in other places, such as Russia, but the situation is definitely not rosy here either. I get on Grindr and meet a guy, supposedly 18 years old. The guy didn't have a picture of his face as his profile picture because it's too dangerous. Instead, he had a picture of a rose drawing. Most guys on Grindr here don't have pictures of themselves. We talk for a bit, and I really liked the guy. Eventually, we agree to exchange face pictures. I send him a selfie of myself, and he sends me a picture of a guy from our city. He was cute. And I really liked him, so I told him, "Hey, I saw you around the city, didn't know you were gay too," laughing face. We talk and finally arrange to meet. I had some errands to run at the tailor shop. My cousin's bachelorette party is coming up next week, and I had to adjust my favorite shirt. So, I ask him to meet in front of the tailor shop. The building in which the tailor shop is located has 4 stories. The ground floor is a clothes shop where my aunt works, the first floor is a storage room, the third floor is a barber's salon, and the fourth floor is the tailor shop. I go to the tailor shop and then visit my aunt in the clothes shop on the ground floor to see how she's doing. As I'm looking out the window of the clothes shop, I notice 5 men, all in their late 20s, behind the building. None of them was the guy I got a picture of, and none of them even looked remotely close to what the guy looked like. I text the guy I was supposed to meet and ask him if he made it to the tailor shop. As soon as I send the message, one of the 5 guys' phones lit up, and he started texting. As soon as he stopped texting, I got a notification from Grindr. I'm behind the tailor shop. I went there to smoke so no one would see me. Come smoke with me. I was terrified as I realized I wasn't going to meet the guy in the picture. He tries to get me to go behind the tailor shop, and I try to get him to the side of it. There were no windows to the side of the building, so after a few tries, he agreed to meet at the side of the tailor shop. All 5 guys went to the side of the tailor shop. I peeked my head from the door, looked left and right, and as soon as I saw my way was clear, I ran for it.
Okay, so I'm 14 and I'm often mistaken for 18 because of my shape. A little context: I was at the YMCA with my sisters, we were swimming for a while and then I started to feel sick. My younger sister said, "You don't look good, OP. Maybe you should sit in the changing room for a while." Me, "Yeah, I think I will." I went in the changing room for some peace and quiet, and lucky me no one was there. I sat on one of the benches and closed my eyes. A few moments later and I hear someone come in. It was a guy, tall, muscular, and genuinely good looking. I brushed it off, thinking he was probably waiting on his girlfriend and came to check on her, 'cause she was taking too long or something. That is until he approached me and sat right next to me, so close our thighs were touching. I was really surprised. I scooted over and gave him that "what do you think you're doing" look. He smiled at me and said, "Don't worry girl, I'm not gonna hurt you," and proceeded to put his hand on my back. I stood up, backed away. I was scared to run 'cause he seemed athletic, so he probably could have caught me, He asked me, "How old you, baby?" in a sickeningly sweet tone. I say 14 and he nonchalantly says, "Cool." So I asked how old he was. 23, duh. He then stood up and started walking over to me, and I backed away from him. This is the turning point. I hear a bathroom stall open, and there, standing in all her glory, was the lady who I'll call my hero. She stepped out and I know she heard everything. That dude hightailed it out of there. The lady was nice and stayed with me for a while. Her name was Stacy. Thank you, Stacy.
This incident occurred a few hours ago. To provide some context, I'm a male in my early 20s, and I live in an apartment on the second floor. I returned home from a New Year's Eve party around 6 a.m. I undressed myself, texted a couple of people, and then went to bed, all within a span of 10 to 15 minutes. As soon as I got into bed, I heard my doorbell ring, not my actual door, but the gate to the apartment complex. Initially, I dismissed it, thinking it might be a drunk person or someone playing a prank / being disruptive. However, the person kept ringing very insistently. I went to answer the phone wired to the gate. I don't know if that makes sense. I answered the phone and heard a foreign-sounding guy trying to tell me something about a friend. Keys, and asking me to let him into the complex. I thought for a second and then told him, "I don't know you, I'm not going to open the gate." I hung up and went back to bed. They kept ringing very insistently, so I got up again, a bit frustrated, and answered the phone. This time, I was greeted by a girl speaking perfect English. I live in Italy. She told me clearly that she was staying on the 5th floor, her friend had the keys, and she was a woman alone in the street. She asked me to come check at the door if I didn't believe her, sounding convincing. In this moment, I was intoxicated and tired, trying to weigh my options. What if she really is a girl alone in the street at 6 a.m., in the cold with all the drunk people around? What if she isn't, though? Fortunately, even in my intoxicated state, I had the idea to go out on the balcony over the gate and check who was in the street. I threw on my parka because it was pretty cold, and in my boxers, I went out on the balcony for a moment of surprise. There were 4 seedy-looking people, 2 males, 2 females, if I saw correctly, right in front of the gate, talking quietly among themselves. I called out to them. I shouldn't have done it. "Hey! You wanted to come in," and immediately went inside to call the police and grab a knife. Yeah. The scary thing is that my gate is not see-through, so if I went down, I wouldn't have seen outside, and as soon as I opened the door, I would have been overpowered by them and probably forced to let them into my apartment. The story pretty much ends here. The individuals kept ringing the bell aggressively for another 15 minutes while I turned off the lights and roamed around my house like a concerned resident with a knife in my hand. Periodically checking all the windows. I have windows on the internal courtyard and street, which they could easily have climbed, or so I thought. Then it all ended. I don't even know if the police saw anyone or came at all because I never heard from them, and I just went to bed after a solid hour of this.